Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to episode 96 of Talking Asperger's with Andrew. My name's Andrew Marsh, and I'm autistic. My representation of autism is Asperger syndrome, or as the diagnostic manuals call it, and some people refer to it in the medical profession as type 1 autism. That implies there's a type 2 and a type 3 autism, which there are. Now, I use the phrase Asperger syndrome to refer to the condition that I have. Other people might use other terms, and that's absolutely fine. It's not something that I get hung up about, but I prefer Asperger syndrome, and that's what I'm going to be using in today's webinar, unless I'm talking in the broader sense of autism generally. So, who am I? What do I do? Well, I work with employers to help them better manage people like me because I'm autistic. And I had a whole career as a geologist, knowing I was different, but not knowing why. I didn't get my diagnosis until 8 years ago. And I look back on that and think, okay, how would I want to manage someone like me? If I knew I was autistic or I thought I had autistic employees, how would I manage them to get the best from them, to better engage with them, to better make them feel welcomed and part of the team? And how would I get the best from them? Because ultimately, that's what business is about. If you get the best from your employees, it's more likely you're going to be more productive, earn more money, which you can send to your shareholders, your board, and cascade down to the people that have actually done the work, the employees. It's important that profit is shared throughout the business and not just taken by those at the top. Because very soon, if that happens, people are going to leave because they're not getting rewarded properly. So with that in mind, I have these weekly webinars where I try to help you and inform you about things to do with Asperger's syndrome and autism in the workplace. What some of the symptoms and visible representations of that might be, what employers can do to make it better, to help them engage and get best from their employees, and some of the other things that are less than particularly well known about autistic people and people with Asperger's syndrome. And that's one of the things I want to talk to you today about. And you might sit there when I tell you what this is and think, what? What did you just say? Really? Or you might go, yeah, I got that. And today's talk is about having a running commentary in your head of what is going on. Now, you're sitting there thinking, what does he mean by that? Running commentary? Well, it's like having your favorite or your less than favorite sports commentator commentating on everything you're doing. Give you a moment to think about that. So when I'm making a cup of tea, I've got a commentary in my head going, and now Andrew's just going to the fridge to get the milk to pour into the tea, to pour into the cups, and he's going to take the tea bags out of the cup. This is going on in my head all of the time. All of the time. And even while I'm sat having this conversation with you today, that running commentary is doing exactly that. It's telling me that I'm talking to you on the internet through this webinar about the running commentary. It becomes very parallaxical, if that is such a word. But it is something that autistic people have. And when I put my post up on Friday of last week that today's topic is going to be about the running commentary, I had an autistic friend on LinkedIn went, tell me about it, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. So it's not just me. It's not this weird Andrew thing that's happened. Other autistic people and quite possibly neurotypical people have as well. I don't know. It's not the sort of thing you go around asking people. You sat in the pub with your mates, you go, oh, by the way, have you got any commentary in your head about you're just about to get up and go to the toilet, or it's your turn to do a round, and what you're thinking about what the drinks that the people are going to want, and they'd look at you and go, what? So it's not something that you can casually drop into conversation and um have an engaging response, because people are probably going, what did he just say? A running commentary in your head. What, you mean like Peter O'Sullivan or David Coleman or John Madden or whoever your favorite commentator is from the sport or sports that you like? Yeah, just like that. I've got David Coleman going on in my head. Well, there's Andrew Graham. I've got the whole thing. It's there all the time. Even when I'm trying to go to sleep, the running commentary is going, there's Andrew lying down. He's just fluffed his pillow and he's made sure that his blankets are okay and he's going to try and go to sleep. And this is happening all the time. For anything, the trivial as well as the important and the significant, the running commentary is there in my head going, this is what Andrew's doing. Imagine trying to meditate and calm the mind when you've got a running commentary in your head. It's An interesting challenge, because you've got to try and turn two things off. You've got to try and turn yourself off so that you're centered and focused on meditate. And you've got to try and turn off your sports commentator going, and there's Andrew trying to sit down and meditate. And is he going to be successful? And what's going to come today? And all of that is going on in my head. Now, you might be sitting there having listened to me for the last 5 minutes and going, you might have Asperger's, mate, but you're nuts. And maybe you're right. Because we're all a little bit wacky from time to time. We all do things that other people might go, "Oh, did you really just say that? And do you actually do that?" But yes, there are people who have a running commentary in their head all the time. It's quite bizarre. It takes a lot of getting used to, and sometimes it is the most difficult thing to turn down so that you can concentrate and focus on the thing you're doing, rather than have the commentary telling you to focus, that Andrew is trying to focus on what he's doing, and he's doing these calculations, and that's going on in my head. I'd love to speak to a psychologist or psychiatrist about this, because they'd probably be sitting there thinking, "Oh yeah, we've got one here, definitely." But I can guarantee you that if you were to speak to a psychiatrist or a psychologist who has clients and has done for 20 or 30 years, they will probably turn around and say to you, "Do you know what? There is no such thing as normal." Because I see people from all walks of life, and trust me, they have got things that go on in their head. And I'm going to use the word hang-ups, and I'm trying to use that in the right way. They've got hang-ups and fetishes and obsessions about all sorts of things. So you're telling me you've got running commentary in your head? Yeah, you're quite sane, mate. Don't worry about it. You're fine. But that's what I have. Running commentary going on in my head. What does it mean? That's might be a very interesting thing. You're sitting there watching this on replay going, "That's all very well and good, Andrew. What does that actually mean? What does it actually mean to me as an employer, having someone like you sitting at a desk in my business? What does it mean?" Well, it means that sometimes if you ask me, just come out of the blue and ask me a question about something that I'm doing, I might not respond in a positive way. I might not respond at all, because I'm listening to the running commentary going on in my head. And you just coming over or calling from the office door or some distance away might not register that you are actually talking to me, rather than, "Hey, Andrew, can you just get that for me?" That possibly won't register, because I'm focused on what I'm doing, got the running commentary going on in my head, and that's my little world, my little bubble that I'm in. So if you want something, you want to ask them something, or you want some information or something to do something, come into their, without invading their personal space, but come into their field of view and say, "Andrew, hi, you got a minute?" That makes me look up from what I'm doing. Yes, recognizing that there's someone there, and understanding that that person wants to engage with me about something. So I can then stop focusing on the thing that I was doing, the calculations, whatever it was that I was doing. I can then turn my attention to that person, my colleague, my boss, my manager, divert my attention from what I was doing before to what is in front of me now, and then pay attention. All the while being told in my head, "And Dave's just come along to see you. I wonder what Dave's going to ask you about today, Andrew, because he's just interrupted you from doing the thing that you were doing for Dave." There's a science fiction linear answer loop, if ever I heard one. So if you are working with someone who has Asperger's or autism, and you want to get their attention without being rude, be quite firm to get their attention, rather than call from across the room. Go up to them, get close without personal invasion, and say, "Andrew, do you have a minute, please?" Stop what you're doing, look up. Another person has come towards me to talk to me about something. I need to engage with that person. So it's like a little mini step process. Stop, turn, look, engage. And then you can have the conversation or answer the question that the person who has come over to you has asked you. And it's important that person, your boss, your colleague, whatever, gives you the time to change focus from what you were doing, interruption point, refocus point on the person in front, rather than go, Andrew, can I ask you this question? Blah, 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 bam. I have a question that has 4 parts. Have you done this, and this that I asked you to do on Monday? Oh, hang on a minute. Stop. Slow down. One thing at a time. I can only do one thing at a time. I can only respond about one thing at a time. So what is it you want to know? Have I done those 5 things? No. Those 5 things were to be done by me by Friday. I have done one and I'm working on the second one. And I emailed you last night before I went home from work with the answer or the solution to point 1 that you asked me about. And I'm now working on the second topic that you asked me about. There is nothing wrong with that. That is absolutely fine. It's when you bombard an autistic person with multiple questions or multiple parts to a question, or I need the answer to these 6 things by tonight. That's when the autistic person will start to get overloaded, start to get uncomfortable. They will probably, without knowing it, they will probably start to get defensive. They'll have that response that is sort of potentially backing away and becoming a bit terse without trying to be aggressive, to say, hang on, just a minute. Let's do it one thing at a time. One thing at a time. And ask them that one thing and then get an answer and then go on to the next point. Because we have this running commentary in our head. Because when you've said, have you done those 5 things? The running commentary in my head is going, 5 things. Yes, he said that said that yesterday morning. Those 5 things are bam, bam, bam. Have I done it? Have I done that? Have I done this? Have I done that? No, I'm going to do those things next week towards the end of the week. That's all going on in my head while boss, colleague, co-worker has come over and is standing in front of you at your desk asking you about a certain point. So there's a moment where the attention needs to be regained by the autistic employee to understand that there's someone there in front of them wanting to ask them something, all the while having this running commentary going on in their head. And what it also means is that when someone asks you something, you may not respond straight away because there's thing going on in their head. So they have to, as I've just said, divert their attention, change focus, engage with that with that person that's in front of them and what they want to talk about. And the running commentary will change. Oh, just seen Dave, he's on his way over. What does he want? And that is going on while you're then changing your focus from what you were doing to what's Dave going to be asking me about. And guess what? The running commentary is going, there's Dave. He's going to ask me something about what's going on. What's he going to ask me? And that happens. So it's a very difficult thing to try and explain. And I hope that I've tried to put it across that in a way that still makes me look sane, if indeed I am. Because we're all a little bit foibled with various things, whatever that may be. And as I said earlier, psychiatrists will tell you that there's a very, very broad scope of what is considered normal. And trying to pin down a psychiatrist to say, well, what's normal behavior? Because normal to one person won't be normal to another person and could be absolutely abhorrent to someone else. If you take, and this is an extreme case, you take a case of severe domestic abuse. And unfortunately, there are these instances, and there's a famous case back in England 20 or so years ago, where the husband and wife were both in on the abuse of their children. They killed various people, buried them in the patio. Their son had a world where his understanding of what normal was being berated, beaten, abused, starved, That was his normal because he knew no other normal. He had no other frame of reference as to what normal. Normal to everyone else was coming home, getting beaten, getting shouted at, not getting your dinner, and that would repeat day after day after day. It was only when that child, and it was still a child, was invited by a classmate back to classmate's home after school to do some homework that the abused child saw someone else's version of normal. It's a loving family. Oh, hi, you're in from school. Would you like a cup of tea? Never happened before. They sat down at the kitchen table and they talked. And Mum was pottering about doing things. And this abused child sat there incredulous as to what he was witnessing. So one person's version of normal might be completely different. So my version of normal is having this running commentary going on in my head about all sorts of things. And having said that, it's given me the full hit of that abuse situation of what happened in that case. They were eventually caught. A nasty, horrible case. Won't go into any more details, but so you might be sitting there thinking, running commentary in your head, what all that's about? That's a bit strange, but it's my normal. Always had it. Didn't suddenly wake up one morning and boom, there's a sports commentator going, oh, and he's on the 26-yard line, and he's about to throw the football, or he's got a free kick just outside the box, and he's got the ball where he wants him, and he's going, he's going to try and chip it over into the far corner. All of those things are happening to autistic people, and maybe neurotypical people as well. I don't know. I might have to do a gentle questioning of friends and family and asking them, you got running commentary going on in your head? What? That would be an interesting conversation. But it's important to understand that as well as their own little quirks and foibles and idiosyncrasies that we all have, autistic people have that as well. People with Asperger's syndrome have those tics and quirks and things like that going on. And accept everyone's differences. That's the key thing about diversity, equity, and inclusion, is accepting other people's differences. Because if we get hung up about everyone's differences, where does it begin and where does it end? You might be working with someone who's from Eastern Europe or South America or Singapore or Australia. Their representation of a normal day will be different from yours because they've been brought up in a different country, different culture, different way of doing things. You watch sport. You watch two countries playing sport. And you look at their mannerisms and their actions and the way they do things. You watch when the referee blows the whistle and there's a little bit of confrontation. You watch what happens. You watch who says what to whom. You get a difference between those two sets of players. You've got Asperger syndrome. Some of us have a running commentary going on in their head. Let's have a quick drink. And it's quite bizarre. And it's very factual. It's very factual. It doesn't go off on great tangents. It's a commentary of what I am doing, what I am thinking, what is happening in this world that I'm in, my little bubble. Excuse me, I called it earlier. In my little bubble. And what happens in that little bubble? What's going on up here? So if you are working with autistic people, be aware that they are different. Their brain is wired differently. And their pathways between the synapses and all those things can be different. And there could be more of them. They could be wired and engaged in different ways that makes them act and behave in a different way. So that when you would ask someone something, you pretty much expect a certain answer. You ask an autistic person or someone with Asperger's in the same question, you might get a completely different answer. I carry an alert card. It's downstairs. It's near the door, so that whenever I go out, I have an alert card, and it says this person has an autism spectrum disorder, because that's autistic. That's what my Asperger's is. It's an autism spectrum disorder. And it says three things on it. I'm going to try and remember what they say. It says, this person may not understand what you've said. This person may not react in the way that you expect. This person might say things that are different from what you expect. So what it is doing, if I ever have to use my alert card to show someone in a situation where I've got myself in a fankle or something has happened and I'm having a meltdown or I'm getting very anxious and agitated and I need to try and find a way to calm down, show my alert card, say, look, really sorry, but please read this. So that the other person can think, okay, person has autism, and we try and diffuse the situation. It's useful for the police so that the police know straight up if there is a situation that I can say I'm autistic, and then I go, oh yeah, okay, I can then prove that, but with my alert card, and so they can hopefully have had the training to understand that I might say, act, and behave in a different way from what they expect, and that difference they should understand is not trying to be difficult or obstructive or hindering the nature of what it is that they are speaking to you about. So that running commentary is going on all the time. And he's a little demon. He's just going on and on and on. And it's male. I have a male voice running commentary. And it can be distracting. When I'm doing certain things, it's less of a thing. When I'm writing, for example, when I'm sat down and I'm writing a book, writing a story, it's like the narrator of the story. And I'm keeping up with what they're saying and typing out the story as I see it. Because I see, when I'm writing a story, it is as though I am watching a video of the film. It's as though I'm sitting in a cinema or at home with my telly, with the DVD, watching the film of the story. And what I am doing as I sit and type is I am typing what is going on, what is said, what happens. Usually from the point of view of the main character. That is what I do. That is what I see. So when I'm writing a story, I've got the image in my head right there. It's like there's a video screen right behind my forehead. Bam, there it is. Type, 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 type. And the commentary is helping me understand what is going on, what that person is thinking. It's quite interesting. The problem I have with it when I'm writing is that is going so fast that I have trouble trying to keep up. I'm not a touch typist, but I can type reasonably quickly. I'm a two or three finger typist, but I try and keep up. And so I don't worry too much about spelling and typo and grammar. But spellings and typo, the grammar is usually not too bad. And I will go back and correct spelling mistakes and typos and things like that. But it's really important to get the first draft down. Oh, excuse me. Trying to keep up with the commentary that is going on in my head. It's a bizarre thing. But in a way, to me, it's not bizarre because they've always had it. It's like one of those things. It's my version of normal because it's all I've known. It's not like I'm walking down the street, get hit by a car, my leg gets smacked, and I'm in plaster or traction for 6 months and have to use a wheelchair or crutches to get around. Then I will notice how difficult it is to get upstairs and downstairs and pull my clothes on and go to the toilet, do all those things that we take for granted because we have our mobility. So people who are less mobile than you, what's their story? How can you help them? The simplest thing. You see someone coming towards you and you're on the other side of a door and they're on crutches or they've got a stick or they're in a wheelchair, you hold the door open for them, wouldn't you? Even if you're busy and you're in a hurry, you would hold the door open for that other person. You wouldn't just walk through the door, let it slam and go, "Oh, sorry, mate, I'm busy." You wouldn't do that. Please tell me you wouldn't do that. Whatever state our country is in, and however people think, we hold the door open for someone. Even if they don't say thank you and that hacks you off, you don't know what their story is. You don't know what's going through their mind. They might have just been given some horrible news about a family situation, and they just need to get out the building and go and get in their car and go and drive and go and see someone, wherever that person may be, to go and help, assist, sort out what's going on. So people with Asperger syndrome, those of us who have this running commentary, it can impact how quickly we can respond to a third party intervention, someone coming up to us asking us a question, because running commentary going off in our head. So keep that in mind when you work with people who are different, or when you're working with anyone, because you don't know their story. You you don't know what happened to them last night at home. You don't know whether they had a good night or a bad night. You don't know whether they got an email this morning at 6 o'clock. Excuse me. And there's something they need to deal with family-wise or situation. So even for people you know, especially for people you know, because you might have got used to that person behaving in a certain way, and at 10 o'clock they will go and get their cup of tea and they have it in the same mug, and they do this, and then they go and sit down, and you notice when they go and have their lunch, they get their paper and they do the crossword and they do the Sudoku. Everyone has their own routine. Some people's routine is random. They'll have 6 things to do when they're having lunch, and they'll do them in all kind of order. Other people will have those 6 things that they're doing at lunch. Some of them do them in exactly the same order every week, every day of every week of every month, and so on. So that's observing what other people are doing. And be aware that you coming to ask them something is distracting them from that routine, that rhythm, that thing that they're doing. And it might take them a moment to change focus to you. When the phone goes, we have a moment when the phone rings, whether it's a landline, your office phone, or your mobile, something gets your attention. It's the ring of the phone. That ringing of the phone changes your focus from what you were doing. Phone is ringing, there's someone on the end of it. If it's your mobile, it usually tells you who it is, if it's one of your contacts. If not, it might tell you the number and you go, "Who's phoning me from Birmingham?" Don't know anything in Birmingham. And so you might then have who's that? Got a little defensive. Don't know anyone from Birmingham. Why is someone from Birmingham or an 0121 number phoning me? So you automatically have a response that you might not be aware of, where you adjust and you go, "Yes, hello. Oh, yes, it's you. Yeah, I remember now. We met last week at a function." And you then understand the context and the person, and you can then engage with the conversation. I had a very minor motor vehicle accident 6 or 7 years ago. And I still get insurance companies and ambulance chasers phoning me up about the accident with a view to trying to get me to say that I was injured so that they can claim compensation, so that they can make money out of a frivolous claim. I still get them. I had one this morning. Fortunately, it was a number that I've had before, and I have blocked them on my phone, so that when I answer the phone, I don't say anything. I just swipe to acknowledge, so that the phone is answering, and I don't say anything for 2 seconds, and it gets cut off because it goes to auto block. I'm still getting those after 7 years. Crazy. So be aware that people you work with, people you know, friends, colleagues, family, might be behaving in a way because of what has happened that day, last night, after they left from work to go home. And something might have changed, and they might be really struggling with a situation that might be causing them harm. It might be causing them pain. Someone might be hurt. Someone might be injured. Someone might be going to have an operation in hospital. You don't know the story that everyone else has. And that story could change day by day, could change hour by hour. So be aware that people that you know, you've worked with for 10 years, might just be having an off day and might not be on their A game because of something that happened yesterday or this morning. And you coming up to them and asking them the question might just be the trigger to would you just leave me alone? I'm busy, I'm working. Woo, where did that come from? Well, be aware that not everyone is always polite and friendly, not because they want to be mean and horrible, but there's some things going on. And for autistic people, that could be the running commentary in their head is going on and on and on. And they need a moment to disengage from the task that they were doing, engage with you, and then change focus and then engage with you. Be aware that that might take just a few seconds. So always, always, always give the person the time to adjust so that they are focused on you, so that when you ask them the question, it's not, hey, what was that? I was just doing that. I'm doing that for you as well. And you've now interrupted me. Work that one out. But we can't always say that, particularly to our boss. So be aware that there could be things going on in this personal circumstances of whoever you meet, whether it's someone you know through familiarity, through work or friends down the pub or the club you go to, they might be having an off day, or they might be having a running commentary and they need time to disengage and refocus. It's a funny one today, isn't it? Running commentary in your head. And if you've never heard of that before, you're probably sitting there thinking, I don't get that. That's okay. That's okay. Because it takes a bit of explaining, and I don't know whether I've made it any easier or not by trying to explain it today. But yeah, running commentary in our head. And as I said right at the beginning, gentleman on LinkedIn, when I said what today's topic was going to be, said, tell me about it. So it's not just me, other autistic people as well. Could be other neurotypical people. That's about all we have time for today, other than to say all of the videos to my Talking Asperger's with Andrew webinars, which is this, are on my YouTube channel. Please have a look at my YouTube channel, subscribe, like, comment. There are 96, this is the 96th one, episodes on there. So there's bound to be something that could help you as an employer or someone going, need to know a little bit more about this autism and Asperger's thing, because my grandson or my nephew or the person's kid from next door or the chap I play golf with every second Thursday just been diagnosed with Asperger's or autism. And I want to understand how to relate to that person better. It could be all of those things, or it could just be you might have just been promoted to a manager and now you have responsibility for this team of people. And maybe one of those people is autistic, has Asperger's syndrome. How do you go about getting the best from them? Interesting question, isn't it? Because everything's in a state of change. So please feel free to like, subscribe, comment on my previous videos. If you've got a topic that you want me to talk about, then please get in touch either on my website, which is aspergersmatters.com. There's a contact form there, or you can email me at andrew@aspergersmatters.com, and I'll happily get back to you. And if your suggestion is something that I haven't covered with before, or you want me to cover again, then I'll quite happily take that on board for a future episode of Talking Asperger's with Andrew. But if you're just curious and you think, I mean, maybe we need to do something a bit better in your business, just be aware. And I'm not saying this to scare you. Just be aware that the Equality Act of 2010 has now been in place for what, 13 years, and it is now a legal requirement to make reasonable adjustments to any employee that needs it, so that they have a level playing field to be treated in the same way and have the same opportunities at work as their able-bodied and neurotypical colleagues. So if you're sitting there thinking, we should do something, but we don't know what to do, maybe get in touch, because that response of we didn't want to do something and do it wrong isn't now good enough. Look at the Equality Act of 2010. There are things called reasonable adjustments. The simple one that everyone can relate to is, let's just suppose your building has 6 steps from the car park up to the ground floor, and one of your employees, and this is a good one for you. This is the really good one. Not one of your employees, but your best client is in a wheelchair. How do they get from the car park to the door to get to the lift for the 4th floor where your business is? Because they can't get up the stairs in a wheelchair. So a reasonable adjustment is providing wheelchair access with a ramp so that they can get from the car park to the 1st floor, go to the lifts, and come and see you in your business on your 4th floor. You might be thinking, I've only got 1 employee. What are we going to do? It's an awful lot of expense and hassle for that. We might need planning permission and accounts and all that. You still have to do it. But what if it's your number 1 client and that person is in a wheelchair? Because if you can't provide a ramp so that they can come and talk to you about the business and the next 6 months or next year's worth of work, where they might be spending £500,000 worth of fees with you or buying £2 million worth of products from you, if they can't get into your building, guess what they're going to do? They might send you an email saying they can't get into the building, but they're more likely to look on the internet, find your competitor. Oh, they've got a wheelchair ramp from the car park. I'll go and see them. And you've just lost all of that business and all of that reputation that's gone down the window because you don't have a wheelchair ramp for someone getting from the car to your business. That is a reasonable adjustment. Reasonable adjustment for someone who's got a bad back. I had damaged my back when I've been working for 2 years. Had a paragliding accident, broke some bones in my back. Fortunately, after recuperation, I was up and mobile. But my back was sore, and the normal chair that I was sitting in hurt my back. I won't go into the rest of the details, but the gist of it was the company I worked for didn't provide me with a chair to make it easier for me to work with my back. That was one of the reasons why I left that company. We're not going to pay for that. They lost an employee. If you've got an employee that has got a bad back or a bad hip or a dodgy leg, and they need a specific chair so that they can sit comfortably or reasonably comfortably at work and be productive, you should provide that chair. Now, it doesn't have to be a £20,000 chair, but it might be a £300 chair. You know, it might be an unreasonable expectation to have a £20,000 chair for that one employee, but it's not an unreasonable expectation to have a chair that might be £200 or £300 so that that employee can come and be productive. They might be 85–90% productive, and it might take them a little while to get back into the swing of things because they've been off work for 6 weeks, 2 months, 3 months. But would you rather have that than have no employee at all? Yeah, you would. And that employee would rather be back at work than sitting watching daytime TV going, I need to get back to work. This is doing my nut. So that's a reasonable adjustment. Other reasonable adjustments might be an autistic person. We're quite very sensitive to noise and light. Well, some people would want to cancel out that noise of the printer and the phone and the door that slams and clicks and someone sitting next to them who types really loudly with having noise cancelling headphones. They're not sitting listening to music. They just cancel out much of the background noise so that they can be productive. You would allow them to do that, wouldn't you? Simple thing. Reasonable adjustments aren't about making things complicated. They are about giving everyone the opportunity to work in the same environment and have the same opportunity. Maybe I'll cover reasonable adjustments in a later episode of Talking Asperger's with Andrew. But if you're not doing those things, you could be breaking the law. You could be having people not working at their effective, efficient best because they are being distracted by the environment they're working in. Think about that. Think about that really hard. Because one day, A big company is going to get themselves in trouble in court, and they're in trouble. And you'll be sitting there thinking, "Ooh, thank God it wasn't us." But what do we need to do as a result of this? So that's diverging slightly, but those are the things that we need to be talking about. Those are the things that I can help you with. So please feel free, get in touch, and keep a lookout for tomorrow when the video of this webinar will be on my YouTube channel, and on Friday for what next week's topic will be. And I look forward to seeing you next week. If you want to get in touch, please do. I'd love to have a free 30-minute consultation with you, no obligation, to see how I can help you. And if I can help you in some way, or if you're an autistic person and you want to know how you can deal with a difficult manager or a stressful situation at work, or what can you do yourself to help your work get better and your communication with your colleagues be better, please feel free to get in touch. My name is Andrew Marsh. I'm the Resilient Asperger. That's me. Take care. See you next week.